This is an AI-generated deep dive based on the original German transcript of the Mr. Futsal podcast, episode 228. Today's deep dive is titled Futsal in Austria, Symbiosis with Football plus Bite. From the hall to the Happel plus ouch makes you smarter. We'd like to credit the original podcast hosts, Sebastian Rauch and Dr. Daniel Weimar, for the source material that made this analysis possible. Now let's hand it over to our hosts.
When you think about producing elite athletic talent, we usually picture these pristine, heavily funded academies.
Right, absolutely. Like the perfect environment.
Yeah, exactly. We imagine perfectly manicured grass, state-of-the-art sports science labs, climate-controlled everything.
It's like a botanical garden.
Totally. A botanical garden where every single variable is meticulously managed just to, engineer the perfect player.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the most robust, resilient growth doesn't happen in a greenhouse. It actually happens out in the concrete cracks.
That is a great way to put it.
Because what happens when you take a street player from the concrete cages of Vienna and put him in charge of a pristine multi-million-dollar national football academy?
You get a lot of friction. That's what happens.
Exactly. And that is exactly the tension we are exploring today, but looking at two pioneers who are actively reshaping the Austrian Football Association, or the FB.
Right.
We're looking at this massive collision between raw, pragmatic street culture and, rigid institutional bureaucracy.
And the individuals driving this transformation, they're Patrick Babic and Konstantin Breuer.
Right.
To really understand the seismic shift they're orchestrating within the institution of Austrian football today, you have to look at the environment that forged their understanding of the game.
Because they definitely didn't inherit a perfectly structured system.
Not at all. I mean, they had to build their philosophies out of absolute necessity.
So let's start with Patrick. He's currently this major force in talent promotion, and since 2018, he's the full-time head coach in the FB Futsal national team. But from our sources, it seems his background is incredibly unconventional for someone in such a high-level bureaucratic role.
Highly unconventional.
Like, he didn't come up through some polished academy system, right? He grew up playing in the literal cages of Vienna.
The concrete cages, yeah.
And for those who don't know, these are essentially enclosed, hard-surface concrete courts just scattered around the city's parks and neighborhoods.
And what's wild is Patrick actually didn't formally start playing futsal until he was 26 years old.
Wait, 26?
Yeah, 26. And I mean, in the world of elite sports, beginning a specialized discipline at 26 is virtually unheard of.
That's usually considered a decade too late.
Easily. But because of those thousands of hours he spent in the concrete cages, he possessed this raw, unrefined, but highly effective technical skill set.
And it translated perfectly to the indoor game.
Exactly. He went on to win 5 championships with Stella Rossa in Vienna and even reached the UEFA Futsal Champions League qualifier.
Oh, wow, that's huge.
It is, but that level of success actually exposed the absolute ceiling of amateurism in Austria at the time.
Right, because the disparity he faced at that level was just staggering. I mean, imagine this. Patrick and his teammates were essentially just guys with day jobs.
Yeah, they were amateurs.
They were playing regular amateur football on the weekends, working a 9 to 5 during the week, and suddenly they had to travel internationally.
And they're stepping onto the court against full-time, heavily funded futsal professionals.
Exactly. Guys who lived, breathed, and trained the sport 5 days a week with a full medical and tactical staff.
Which is intimidating.
Very. But it forces a very specific kind of pragmatism when you realize you have to outsmart teams that have 10 times your resources.
And that pragmatism is exactly what Konstantin Breuer brought to the table as well.
Right. So let's talk about Konstantin.
Yeah, so Konstantin is now the head of youth sports for the U6 to U15 levels at the UFB.
Okay.
He came up through a slightly more traditional route at the St. Polten Football Academy, but he was equally obsessed with the mechanics of the street game. He realized early on that a standard bouncy football on a concrete surface is an absolute nightmare for skill acquisition.
Oh, because all your mental energy is spent just trying to tame the bounce, right?
Exactly. You're just fighting the ball rather than plotting your next move.
So how did Konstantin simulate the proper environment when he didn't have access to actual futsal equipment as a kid?
Well, he would purposefully deflate his normal footballs.
No way.
Yeah, he just let enough air out so the ball would lose its elasticity and basically just die on the concrete.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's like he was hacking the physical constraints of his environment to force better skill development.
That's a great way to look at it.
I mean, a deflated ball mimics the heavy, low-bounce characteristics of a proper futsal ball.
Right.
It forces you to keep the ball on the ground, use the sole of your foot to trap it, and develop incredibly close control.
It completely strips away the chaos of the bounce.
And makes the game entirely about your technique.
Yeah.
So you have these two guys whose entire sporting philosophies were built on making the most out of nothing.
Yeah.
They understand the why behind the technique, not just the how.
Exactly.
But building elite skills in a cage with a deflated ball is one thing. Trying to bring that cage mentality into the highly bureaucratic halls of the Austrian Football Association.
Oh, that triggered an absolute turf war.
I can imagine. Why is it so hard to push grassroots methods into formal institutional roles?
Well, the structural hurdles were massive. For years, there was this bureaucratic wall between traditional football and futsal.
Okay.
It was centered around something called the Stammverein rule, or parent club rule.
Parent club rule.
Yeah, under this rule, a player essentially belonged as property to their outdoor football club.
Wow.
So if that player wanted to play futsal in the winter to improve their skills, the outdoor football club had to officially grant them permission.
Through some complicated system.
Exactly. A highly complicated dual registration system.
Let me guess. The traditional football clubs weren't exactly eager to hand over their star players to another sport.
They almost always refused.
Seriously?
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that the clubs operated out of this deep-seated fear and a scarcity mindset.
Right.
They were terrified that their player might get injured on a hard indoor court, or that the futsal club might somehow interfere with their transfer rights.
Or just poach the player entirely.
Exactly. They viewed futsal strictly as a competing entity stealing their assets.
Which is such a tragic irony, you know.
How so?
Well, by trying to protect the player from injury or outside influence, these outdoor clubs were actually denying their kids the exact high-repetition, high-pressure environment that futsal provides.
Oh, totally.
They were stifling the player's technical growth in the name of protecting their investment.
Yeah, it's incredibly counterproductive. But the breakthrough that finally started to shatter that bureaucratic wall came with the birth of the Austrian Futsal national team.
Which is crazy because that didn't even exist until 2018.
Yeah. Right. And Patrick realized at age 37 that his body was just too old to compete at that new international level as a player.
So he stepped aside.
Yeah, and took the job as the team's first head coach instead. And their debut was the undeniable proof of concept the Federation needed.
And that debut was spectacular from what I read. I mean, they played their first 2 international matches against their massive neighbors, Germany.
Talk about a high-pressure debut.
Yeah, and both games were completely sold out, and both ended in highly competitive 2-2 draws.
Which is huge.
But why did 2-2 draws against Germany matter so much to the bureaucratic UFB?
Because it provided the undeniable return on investment, the ROI needed to change the minds of the bureaucrats.
Ah, the numbers made sense.
Exactly. It proved that Austrian futsal wasn't just some niche weekend hobby. It was a legitimate competitive force that could draw crowds.
And stand toe-to-toe with major footballing nations.
Exactly. That success provided the leverage they needed to finally abolish the Stammverein rule about 2 years ago.
They got rid of it.
Yeah. Players are now free to officially participate in both sports without needing to beg for a digital checkmark from their parent club.
Okay, so now that they have the permission and the bureaucratic red tape is gone, how do they actually integrate this into the elite football training of the OFB?
That's the next big hurdle.
Because Patrick and Konstantin didn't just want futsal to exist on its own isolated island. Right.
No, not at all. Konstantin actually spearheaded this massive shift by completely changing how the Federation viewed winter training.
Right, because historically winter in Austria was just dead time.
Dead time. Or it was an excuse to hold these massive, hyper-competitive indoor tournaments.
Right.
In fact, Konstantin went so far as to completely cancel a huge, highly prestigious U14 winter tournament.
I'm sure people loved that.
Oh, it was a highly controversial move. It angered a lot of traditionalists.
Well, why did he do it?
His reasoning was focused purely on long-term development. He observed that the tournament had become purely about winning at all costs.
Like packing the defense.
Yeah. Coaches were prioritizing short-term tactical victories, packing the defense, relying on lucky bounces over actual technical skill acquisition.
Yeah, I see.
So by canceling the tournament, he sent a clear message to the entire country. Futsal is no longer a winter distraction.
It's a core pillar.
Exactly. It is a fundamental year-round pillar of the OFB training concept. They shifted the focus from collecting cheap trophies to building foundational skills.
They even created a unified slogan for it, didn't they? From the Hall to the Happel,
Yes.
referring to Austria's national Ernst Happel Stadium.
Right, the idea being the micro skills you forge in a tiny indoor hall are the exact same macro skills that will put you on the pitch of the national stadium.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because honestly, I have to push back here.
Okay, go for it.
It sounds great in theory, but let's look at the physics and geometry of this. Futsal is played on a tiny 40 by 20 meter court with a heavy ball and only 4 outfield players.
Right.
Traditional football is played on a massive 105 by 68 meter grass pitch with 10 outfield players. So how does mastering a tight sole roll or a quick give and go in a claustrophobic indoor hall actually help a player when they step onto a massive pitch where they have 50 yards of open space in front of them?
It's a completely fair question, and honestly, it's the exact skepticism traditionalists have.
Right.
But the answer lies in time and space. On a massive grass pitch, a single player might only touch the ball for a total of 90 seconds during an entire 90-minute match.
That's wild when you think about it.
It is. But in futsal, because the court is small and the player count is low, you are constantly on the ball.
And constantly under pressure.
Exactly. Immediate, suffocating pressure from defenders. You do not have 3 seconds to look down, control the ball, and survey the field.
You have fractions of a second.
Right. Futsal operates like a hyperbaric chamber for decision-making.
Which explains why Ralf Rangnick, the highly respected manager of the Austrian national football team, is so deeply supportive of this movement.
Oh, he's a huge advocate.
I read he actually toured the country and led a futsal session alongside Patrick and Konstantin in a new arena in Vienna. But I have to ask, was that just a PR stunt?
Far from it. When Rangnick was speaking to the grassroots coaches in the room, he told them that they were, in effect, his assistant coaches.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because the tactical overlap is undeniable. The principles of play that Rangnick demands at the national team level, extreme comfort on the ball under immense pressure, rapid decision-making in tight spaces, and immediate aggressive counterpressing the second the ball is lost.
Those are the exact same principles being trained organically in a 4v4 futsal match.
Exactly. In futsal, you can't hide. You can't just stand on the wing and wait for the ball.
Yeah, that hyper-engagement translates directly to the modern high-intensity outdoor game.
But even with the national team manager's endorsement, Patrick and Konstantin are still fighting a massive cultural battle on a totally different front.
Which brings us to a phenomena that is uniquely stubborn in Austria and Germany. They are fighting an absolute war against Bandenfußball, or board football.
Board football. It is the traditional way indoor football has been played in the region for decades.
It's played with a regular bouncy football inside an arena, completely surrounded by hockey-style rinks, walls, or boards, right?
Exactly.
And this is where the terminology and the environment completely dictate the habits of the players. I mean, think about the mechanics of playing with boards.
It changes everything.
You're a young kid, you receive a hard pass, and your first touch is terrible.
Right. The ball bounces 5 feet away from you.
Yeah. Now, on a normal pitch or a proper futsal court with out-of-bounds lines, you just lost possession.
The game stops.
Exactly. Your team is in trouble, and you receive immediate negative feedback for your bad technique.
But in a boarded arena.
You just pretend you meant to do it.
Yeah.
You let the ball bounce off the wall, run around the defender, collect a rebound, and you look like a creative genius to the parents in the stands.
It's crazy.
The boards act as a physical crutch that completely masks terrible technique.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the terminology used in Austria and Germany actually perpetuates this exact problem.
How so?
Well, the word futsal sounds foreign and clinical to a lot of people there.
Okay.
So people naturally gravitate toward comfortable traditional terms like Hallenfußball, which just means indoor football, or Budenzauber, which translates to indoor magic.
Indoor magic.
Right. But that so-called magic is often just chaotic pinball.
Yeah, just bouncing around.
Exactly. By framing the sport with these romanticized terms, the culture celebrates the chaotic, unpredictable bouncing of the ball off a wall, rather than valuing the precise, deliberate, grounded control required in true futsal.
So the OFB's tactical solution to break this bad habit is to push heavily for small-sided games.
Yeah, 3 versus 3 or 4 versus 4.
Strictly without boards.
Strictly without boards. And they introduced a coaching concept called Ich und mein Ball, or me and my ball.
Okay, what does that focus on?
It's entirely focused on high repetition touches, using the sole of the foot to manipulate the ball, and mastering something called pivot play.
Now, for you listening who might not be a tactical nerd, what exactly is the mechanism of pivot play in futsal, and why is it so vital?
So pivot play relies on having a strong central player, the pivot.
Okay.
They position themselves high up the court, often with their back to the opponent's goal. Their job is to receive a hard, flat pass, use their body to shield the defender, trap the ball under the sole of their foot, and then either distribute it to a rushing teammate or quickly roll the defender to take a shot.
That sounds like it requires incredible balance and strength.
Yeah, and spatial awareness, yeah.
Yeah.
If you can master playing as a pivot in futsal, where a defender is practically breathing down your neck, holding off a center back on a grass pitch becomes significantly easier.
And to teach this low center of gravity balance to kids, Patrick uses a really vivid analogy. He tells them to dribble like a crab.
I love that. The crab dribbling analogy is perfect because it instantly forces a player to drop their hips and widen their stance.
Right. If you watch a phenomenon like Lamine Yamal play for Spain on the grass, his dribbling posture in the final third, how he protects the ball, how his knees are bent, how he can explode in either direction with tiny, rapid touches, is functionally identical to an elite futsal player.
Yeah, you can really see it.
That low, agile, sole-of-the-foot control is what Patrick and Konstantin are trying to program into the next generation of Austrian players.
But to do that, you absolutely must remove the safety net of the walls.
Exactly.
And removing that safety net brings us to what might be the most counterintuitive yet fascinating part of this entire deep dive.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
We're moving from the tactical benefits of futsal to the raw physical and biomechanical realities of playing on hard surfaces.
Yeah.
Because the number one pushback the EFB gets from parents and traditional coaches isn't about tactics.
It's about the fear of injury.
Right. It's a very visceral reaction. Totally. When parents see their kids sprinting, stopping, and turning on hard concrete or a wooden parquet floor, they naturally worry about the immense impact forces on their children's developing joints and ligaments.
But Konstantin has this pedagogical motto that he repeats at coaching courses all over the country to counter this fear. He says, "Oa macht schlauer."
Ouch makes you smarter.
Exactly. Ouch makes you smarter.
It sounds harsh, but the biomechanical feedback loop is undeniable.
Because if you're playing on soft, perfectly watered grass, the ground is incredibly forgiving.
Right. You can dive into tackles, you can slide recklessly, and you don't get hurt.
But if you try a reckless slide tackle on a hard concrete cage,
the concrete does not forgive you. You lose skin.
You experience immediate negative physical feedback.
So what happens to the player? The brain adapts instantly.
You learn to stay on your feet.
Exactly. You learn to win duels through balance, secure your body positioning, and perfect timing, rather than just throwing your body at the ground.
So playing on hard surfaces naturally filters out reckless behavior and builds players who are physically robust and incredibly stable in physical combat.
Yes, which completely flips the script on how we view physical development.
So what does this all mean for the kids? Because there is this deep-seated fear in Austria that hard courts cause conditions like Morbus-Schlatter, right?
Yeah, also known as Osgood-Schlatter disease.
For context, this is a painful inflammation of the patellar ligament right below the kneecap, and it's incredibly common in young athletes going through rapid growth spurts.
Very common. And parents think the hard floor is the absolute enemy of their children's knees.
But Konstantin points to the Athletic Bilbao Academy in Spain to prove that this fear is based on a complete myth.
Yeah, Athletic Bilbao is globally renowned for having one of the most successful, localized youth development setups in the world.
And their policy regarding playing surfaces is mind-blowing to traditionalists.
It really is. Up until the U16 level, their academy players train almost exclusively on fast, heavily watered artificial turf.
Which is a very hard, very unforgiving surface compared to natural grass.
And despite playing on that hard surface year-round, they don't have an epidemic of knee injuries.
Why not?
Exactly the opposite happens, because the human body is an incredible adaptation machine. This relates to fundamental physiological principles where bones and soft tissues adapt to the stresses placed upon them.
Okay.
If a child is consistently exposed to harder surfaces year-round, Their body adjusts. The tendons become thicker, the ligaments grow stronger, and the bone density increases to handle those specific high-impact forces.
So if the hard surface itself isn't the problem, what is actually causing the injuries in Austria?
Konstantin argues the real danger is the sudden, violent transition.
The switch between surfaces.
Right. In the traditional Austrian model, kids spend 7 months of the year playing exclusively on soft, forgiving grass.
So their bodies adapt to that soft environment.
Exactly. Then, right in the middle of winter, perhaps during a massive physical growth spurt, they're abruptly shoved into a hard indoor hall 3 times a week.
I see.
It's the shock to the unadapted system, the sudden change in surface friction and impact force that causes the inflammation and injury.
So consistency on a hard surface builds resilience, but sudden dramatic shifts cause trauma.
Exactly.
It's so counterintuitive. We think we are protecting them by keeping them on the soft grass, but we're actually making them fragile.
Yeah.
As we look at the ultimate goals of Patrick and Konstantin, their wishes for the future of Austrian sports are incredibly telling.
Oh, they are.
When asked what they would do if the EFB gave them unlimited resources, Konstantin's answer is brilliant. He doesn't want endless millions poured into building massive, climate-controlled, state-of-the-art indoor futsal arenas.
No, he wants every single dime poured into coach education.
Why is that?
He views infrastructure as a luxury, but knowledge as a liver.
Right.
If you properly educate a grassroots coach on the fundamental mechanisms of futsal, the importance of small-sided games, the low player-to-ball ratio, the specific biomechanical demands of sole control, that coach doesn't need $1 million facility.
They can just take a couple of pop-up goals, throw them down on a village parking lot or a tennis court, and build world-class technical skills right there on the asphalt.
Exactly. And Patrick's ultimate wish is for a true dual education system.
A sporting culture where kids grow up with both traditional football and futsal intertwined.
Yeah, with the skills feeding off each other. And to achieve this, they've launched a brilliant new project partnering with the Austrian road safety authorities.
I read about this. They're holding seminars for physical education teachers across the country and giving them actual low-bounce futsal balls to take back to their local schools.
And from the road safety authorities' perspective, this is purely about risk mitigation.
Because it's safer.
Right. A low-bounce futsal ball is much safer in a crowded, chaotic school gym. It stays on the floor, it doesn't fly wildly into children's faces or smash overhead lights like a regular bouncy football does.
But Patrick's angle is completely different.
Totally different.
It's like sneaking vegetables into a kid's fruit smoothie.
That's a great way to put it.
The schools think they're just getting a safer, more manageable gym environment. But Patrick is secretly feeling the kids' elite biomechanical habits.
Right.
By simply changing the physical properties of the ball the kids use at recess, he is silently programming true futsal mechanics into the daily physical education of children across the entire country.
They are completely circumventing the traditional football bureaucracy by changing the culture at the school level.
They're changing the athlete by changing the ball.
It is an absolute masterclass in systemic change.
It really is. We spend so much of our time trying to engineer the perfect greenhouse for success.
We do.
We complain about a lack of resources. We complain that the weather is forcing us inside, or that the floor is too hard, or that the space is too confined.
Always making excuses.
Right. But what if those exact limitations are the necessary constraints required to build something truly world-class?
Yeah, taking away the safety net of the boards, dealing with the hard, unforgiving reality of the concrete.
That friction is exactly what forces mastery. Which brings up a fascinating question when we look beyond the world of sports.
Okay, I'm listening.
We live in an era of padded playgrounds and helicopter parenting, where the prevailing wisdom is to remove every possible physical and emotional obstacle from a child's path to ensure they don't get hurt or frustrated.
Yeah, totally.
But if ouch makes you smarter, on the futsal court, are we inadvertently stunting the cognitive and physical resilience of the next generation by making their environment too soft?
Wow.
Are we avoiding the very friction that builds elite problem-solving and adaptability in our own careers and personal lives?
That's a really profound thought.
So this week, take a look around your own environment. Where have you installed invisible boards to bounce your mistakes off of?
Right.
Take away the padding, let the ball stay on the ground, and see what you can really build when the concrete doesn't forgive you.